I'm Riley McManus, and welcome to this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. OPP confirmed one person has died in the aftermath of a house fire in Dryden early Wednesday morning. Dryden Fire Services responded at 12:15 a.m. to the blaze in the second story of a residence. It resulted in Highway 17 being partially blocked for 3 hours while crews battled the fire. The lone occupant of the home was transported to hospital and later succumbed to their injuries. Dryden Fire Service and the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office are continuing to investigate the cause of the fire. Fort Frances residents are bracing for a 300% increase to the cost of commuter cards. That's coming into effect soon for the Fort Frances International Falls Toll Bridge, with many saying the price jump isn't realistic for their budget. Lee Noonan has the story.
The whole region calls itself the Borderlands, and it's not uncommon for locals to cross the border every day for work, to catch a movie, or to save on groceries. Single crossing tolls have already gone up, and the price of a commuter card, now $30, is set to triple in January. The 12 crossing cards have been selling like hotcakes since Adragan, the company that owns the bridge, said they would continue to honor cards bought at the current price.
As soon as it was announced, the customers would follow the person dropping them off into the store, and we would immediately sell out within an hour.
Stewart says the Fort Frances Safeway has sold more than 10,000 cards since the toll increase was announced in October, with sales continuing at an unprecedented rate. Pierce Gwynn and Matt Worley play for the Fort Frances Lakers but live in International Falls. They say they've each dropped $400 American to buy 20 cards, but that won't last them through the hockey season.
We cross it probably twice a day.
Yeah, 5 days a week. Some days twice, could be once.
Single mom Jasmine Breuer has family in International Falls and says the price jump has been a challenge. She's especially worried about her mother, who depends on her to get around.
There are some of us that are living day to day, paycheck to paycheck. And I mean, if we can't go see our family and we can't be a part of that anymore because we have to limit to when we can go, special occasions or something, like it's really hard. It's really hard to think about it like that. I mean, my mom is 65 and she's not in good health. And I'm her eyes. She's blind, but I can't bring her to see her sisters now. It's hard.
Travis Glowowski owns a web design and marketing company with clients on both sides of the border and says the local business community is concerned about the increase.
Our clients are freaking out. We deal a lot, not only with businesses in town, but across the entire Rainier River District, a lot of them being resorts, lodges, fishing, hunting, things like that. We're trying to figure out if there might be like packages, some way that we can kind of figure out like, hey, we'll give you a reimbursement, or hey, just be aware that there is going to be this extra fee.
Not everyone here is feeling the cost themselves. Some say they hardly ever cross the bridge. However, they all know someone who is affected and say the issue is a stressor throughout the region. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
An airplane which took off from Thunder Bay has crashed upon landing in Wawa Monday morning. Fortunately, no one was injured, but officials from the Transportation Safety Board say there was extensive damage to the plane. The aircraft was a Mitsubishi MU-2 owned by Thunder Airlines in Thunder Bay. There were 3 people on board at the time, 2 pilots and a medic. This webcam located next to the Wawa airport shows emergency vehicles rushing to the scene just before 8 a.m. on Monday. The TSB says the runway was snow-covered at the time, and the plane lost control while it was landing. The emergency response manager for Thunder Airlines, Michelle Moffett, says they're grateful no one was hurt. TSB investigators will be at the scene tomorrow to try to determine the cause of the crash. Northwest Region OPP confirmed that 2 people were injured in a collision north of Nipigon Monday afternoon, involving a transport truck and an SUV. It happened on Highway 11 near Orient Bay. OPP say the driver of the transport, a 26-year-old from Calgary, has been charged with careless driving and driving left of center on a curve. 2 occupants of the SUV were transported to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The highway was shut down in both directions for several hours. The Rainy River and Kenora districts have a new ambulance dispatch system. They're the first in the Northwest and among the first in the province to make the switch to the new medical priority dispatch system. When a call comes from dispatch, it now has one of 5 colored code priority levels. There were 2 levels under the old system. If an ambulance is out on a non-urgent yellow or green call, it can be diverted to a more urgent red or purple call, making sure paramedics get to where they're needed most. Rainy River EMS Chief Josh Colling says anyone waiting on an ambulance for a non-urgent issue can expect a call back from dispatch every half an hour to reassess.
Yeah, so if a purple being our highest priority came in, that might be something such as a cardiac arrest. Whereas down at the other end of the spectrum, we may have something come in as a green, which may be something like a sprained ankle, deferrable, not quite as high a priority, so the calls are triaged accordingly.
The new system went into effect on November 8th. Colleen says the transition has gone smoothly so far in Rainy River. And while they don't have enough data to show an improvement yet, anecdotally, he says the new system seems to be working as it's supposed to and allocating EMS resources appropriately. 3 individuals have now been arrested and charged in the township of Marathon following a break-and-enter and the theft of firearms. The OPP announced a 33-year-old male and a 48-year-old woman, both from Marathon, and a 14-year-old have been arrested. They're facing charges of break-and-enter with intent to steal a firearm and break-and-enter into a dwelling house. The case dates back to November 18th when police received reports of a break-and-enter that occurred between November 16th to 17th, in which multiple firearms were stolen. The accused are being held in custody and will appear in court at a later date. A Northwestern Ontario search and rescue group has renewed its accreditation for another 2 years through vigorous training exercise. We'll have that story after the break. The Northwestern Ontario Air Search and Rescue Association has renewed its accreditation for another 2 years after a successful military evaluation exercise. The training simulation included a Hercules plane and an air search team supporting the local ground searchers. Josh Morano has the story.
On an open patch of land just past Stanley, an evaluation team comprised of Royal Canadian Air Force and Ontario Civil Air Search and Rescue Association representatives put the NOASA members through a simulated search and rescue. The objective, finding this little beacon. The beacon is to represent any form of signal, much like a cell phone, that the pilots can identify and investigate. Civil Air Search and Rescue Director Stephen Hunsberger says these exercises are crucial in making sure the team is ready for the real thing.
It just determines our capabilities as a unit. We conduct search and rescue exercises pretty much every month throughout the year to stay in tune but this just reaffirms that we are capable to do that.
The big plane leading this exercise is a Hercules. Based out of the 435th Squadron in Winnipeg, the plane is piloted by members of the Air Force. Once it targets a location, 2 to 3 members drop from the plane. Then they determine the injury to the individual on scene, report back to the aircraft, and await an equipment drop.
We participate with squadron support. It helps with the training of the military personnel, pilots, their SARTECs, those who jump to the search and rescue sites. And it helps them to gain more knowledge and accreditation for their own purposes.
Based out of the Thunder Bay International Airport, NOASA currently has about 25 volunteer members serving a variety of capacities. Huntsberger urges people to look into the unit and consider joining up. Josh Morano, TBT News.
The plummeting price of palladium has prompted a mine in the region to adjust its business plan. Impala Canada's Lactazil mine is charting what it calls a new path in response to the price drop. The price of palladium has steadily dropped to about half of what it was a year ago. The mine, north of Thunder Bay, employs more than 1,100 workers. In a recent note to employees, Impala CEO Tim Hill says a major recovery isn't expected in the short term, and that the company's amending the business plan, quote, through a lens of the current price environment. Hill promises to share the new plan with employees, but can't yet say when it will be finalized. After a multi-million-dollar deal between the federal government and tech giant Google, Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Hajdu is calling it a win for Canadian journalism. The deal means Google will continue to share Canadian news online in return for the company making annual payments to news companies. The payments are in the range of $100 million a year, though the federal government was previously pushing for $172 million. Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Hajdu says this deal is a step in the right direction for local media outlets.
In Canada, this is a win for democracy because journalism in Canada is an essential and core component of keeping elected officials on record and holding people accountable. But it's also a win for small communities like Thunder Bay, who has a thriving news community that is oftentimes locally owned, in many cases regional, and very, very important to the constituents that I represent.
As for a deal with other tech giant Meta, Hajdu says it's now just a matter of time after the progress made with Google. A union leader representing Wildland firefighters is criticizing the Ford government's level of support for them. It comes after safety regulations for M&R fire crews were discussed at Queen's Park last week, with the NDP calling for the same benefits as municipal firefighters. Vasilios Bellos reports.
A call from an area member of provincial parliament demanding more supports for wildland firefighters.
We know that they're still not covered for presumptive cancers, and frankly, what do we do when the government itself is the bad actor?
During a discussion at Queen's Park this week, local New Democratic MPP Lise Vaugeois raised concerns she's heard from people fighting forest fires on the ground. Vaugeois says these individuals argue their work should result in the same health benefits, equipment, and wages as municipal firefighters. It prompted a response from Thunder Bay's progressive conservative MPP Kevin Holland, who has experience as a long-serving volunteer firefighter himself.
You can sit there and wave your arms all you want, but we have brought in, this government is the one that has brought in legislation recognizing the importance of protecting our firefighters.
The PC government announced plans to spend $20.5 million to modernize forest fire efforts, but a union member for provincial wildland firefighters feels Holland's comments missed the mark.
He doesn't understand that legislation does not actually help us at all.
Noah Friedman is the vice president of OPSU Local 703 and feels workers in the field deserve more supports. Currently, they're classified as resource technician jobs rather than forest firefighters. Friedman believes a reclassification would lead to the benefits he believes these workers deserve.
In my 7th season in 2022, I made $28,000 before taxes. Would simply allow us to be recognized as firefighters, would help us get the presumptive health care that regular firefighters get. Like, if we get cancer down the road, nobody's helping us.
Friedman says his members currently have zero health coverage other than OHIP, stressing forest fire smoke has been proven to have dangerous chemicals like formaldehyde. Vasilios Bolos, TBT News.
MPP Lise Vaugeois is questioning the Ford government on its potential plan to merge the two health units in northwestern Ontario. Vaugeois raised the issue at Queen's Park on Monday. The parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Health responded, but spoke about expanding medical school spaces at NOASA and not about the health unit mergers.
40+ ministerial visits to the north, and this government still has no idea of our lived realities, or they don't care. The government is now studying whether district health units in Northern Ontario should be merged. Can you imagine one health unit to cover 400,000 square kilometres? Why is this government trying to reduce healthcare services for the people of Northern Ontario?
Years of neglect by previous governments, supported by the New Democrats, got us into the situation that we're in today. But we're taking action to fix the mistakes of past governments. I can't believe the member opposite is complaining about the number of ministers going to the north from this government. That should be a good thing. We are paying attention to what's happening in the north.
And we'll be back in just a moment with a story from Fort Frances, where the DSAP is raising awareness of homelessness in the region. The District of Rainy River Services Board is hoping to raise awareness about homelessness in the region. They hosted an open house on November 22nd, National Housing Day, inviting the community in to see the warming center and learn more. Lee Noonan was there.
The Out of the Cold Warming Center in Fort Frances opened for the season on November 9th. It provides a place to sleep and stay warm overnight with kitchen, shower, and laundry facilities. Last year, 45 individuals visited the warming center a total of 810 times. The open house was a first chance for the whole community to see the space.
We had an amazing turnout, and people that I didn't really even expect to come. Like, we had seniors come that were like, tell me about this. We've heard it. We were wondering. We live down the street. And I'm like, you care, and you came. And it made me feel happy. My heart was happy that people actually care.
How many people in the district are without shelter on any given night can vary significantly, but there are 56 people who've opted to put their names on the DSAB's by name list at various points in time since it was first implemented about a year ago. The voluntary list is meant to be more humanizing and provide more accurate data than traditional point-in-time homelessness counts.
So it can be used for stats and things that people need to say, we need money for this. But on the other hand, on a personal level, what it does is it brings other service people together and they can service plan for the one person. So, okay, so who knows Tom? Have you seen Tom? You have a good relationship with Tom. Okay, so next time you see him, can you start the housing application with Tom?
Witherspoon Bedard says that with the region's long cold winters, the warming center is one of the most important services they provide. Last winter, the center was open 165 nights, nearly half the year. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Kishkana-Goakwe Health Services held an Addiction Awareness Summit last week. It's the first time they've held the event, but organizers say it won't be the last. The 4-day event features stories of recovery, expert presentations, cultural teachings, and community resources. Participants came from across the 10 First Nations of the Southern Treaty 3 area, including service providers, elders, people in recovery, and those living with active addiction.
So we really just wanted to create a space where we could start some of those conversations and some of those teachings and have everything rooted in, our ways of understanding addictions, because we understand a person as a holistic person. It's not just the mental or emotional piece or the physical piece. It's the collection and the balance of our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being.
Morso connects a loss of culture and colonial trauma to the disproportionate number of Indigenous people affected by addictions. Across all the presentations, she says one theme came up repeatedly: the importance of walking with people through their journey with unconditional love. An Indigenous service provider showcase and leadership session recently took place in Thunder Bay. The event was meant to bring together Indigenous leaders, service providers, and communities from across the region to collectively share and remove barriers through awareness. Mitchell Ringos reports.
The first ever Indigenous Service Providers Showcase and Leadership Session saw leaders from First Nations organizations and those providing Indigenous services within non-Indigenous frameworks set up at the Victoria Inn. Nujamaiwing Sukataiging Health Team Indigenous Co-Chair Natalie Pavila says they put on the event to inform the public, as many residents aren't aware of how many services are offered in our area.
We wanted to remove barriers through awareness by sharing their services and by developing relationships and partnerships amongst ourselves. So that was the goal of today, and I see that it's been very successful so far.
There were over a dozen service, retail, and information booths set up throughout the day, and Thunder Bay services weren't the only ones featured, as Rocky Bay Child and Family Services took part. They deliver child care, protection, and family support services to community members on and off reserve, including to some members here in the city.
It's rewarding for us, right? We're coming back to our community. We're both from Rocky Bay. We're servicing. We're here to help our families and make sure that they got the best of all that they need to be successful in life.
I think it's a great opportunity to network with other Indigenous organizations here today. Like I said, just gathering the information, having that communication, sharing our information.
The service showcase wasn't the only part of the event, as a leadership session was held to facilitate engagement designed explicitly for leaders from First Nation organizations, which Pavila says is very important, as those leaders will help decide a future plan going forward.
Hopefully after today we will have some type of goal or plan on how we can work to get together better going forward, and how do we share our resources, and how do we share the knowledge of the resources that are within the community and district of the City of Thunder Bay.
Treaty 3 Police held their 5th annual all-girls gathering last week, with events around the region for girls from Treaty 3 First Nations aged 13 to 18. Lee Noonan has more.
The Treaty 3 all-girls gathering was held in Dryden, Kenora, and Fort Francis, with roughly 100 girls attending in total, joined by their adult chaperones. The event is organized by officers with the Treaty 3 Police Service.
We're leaders in the community, and when we're practicing our traditional ways and culture, it's empowering people within the community to take part and take back their culture.
The day-long event kicked off with traditional drumming and women's cultural teachings.
We come in and we start singing, and we sing loud. You know, as women, our voices are to be heard. And so we sing loud.
Every year, the event also features a self-defense class, teaching the girls some fundamentals of keeping safe and fighting back in a threatening situation.
There must be 1,000 different ways that a bad guy could attack me. Now there's one. Okay, right hand and left hand. And they're going to try to stab you, punch you, grab your hair, slap you. But what do they do it every time, right? She's like, anything else you got there, Mr. White? Right? Every time I throw, she just keeps putting her hand up and stopping that.
This year's keynote speaker, Kristen McKay, shared her music and art with the girls, as well as a message of love and empowerment.
Call your spirit back. Take care of each other. Be the change. Everybody love everybody.
Sergeant McCready hopes the event will help inspire the girls to consider jobs in policing or take on other leadership roles in the community.
They absolutely know there's a spot here for them if policing is the way they want to go, and we hope that they do. And this just brings awareness of exactly what we do.
McCready says the response from the girls across the region has been positive, and she hopes they've been able to inspire and empower them. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. We hope to see you again next week.